In this video, I'll tell you how to become a better filmmaker without buying or owning a single piece of filmmaking equipment. It's difficult to argue there's ever been a better time to teach yourself filmmaking, but filmmaking can often seem to involve so many factors, it's difficult to know how or where to get started. Go to film school, or make short films on your smartphone, or get a job on the lowest rung of the film industry ladder and work your way up. Make music videos. Or what? The choice can seem bewildering. When I was a teenager wanting to get into filmmaking, they told me to start as what they called a T-boy, basically what is known in the industry as a runner, and your job is to literally run around doing all the low-skilled jobs. The only required qualification was a driver's license, so you could run and fetch a piece of kit, or perhaps a cast member from the station. Don't buy a camera if you have a smartphone, because these days smartphones shoot pretty high quality video, and if you have a native or third-party app which gives you manual control, then you can start learning right away. Sure, you can spend $500, $1,000 or $2,000 on an entry-level camera, but compare that to FiLMiC Pro, which costs you about $15, and you can use it with the smartphone you already own. If you ask a professional what are the most important elements of cinematography, they'll usually say camera movement, lighting and framing, and all these elements can be learned using just about any camera. I taught myself filmmaking, so you can too. While established film schools are great places to learn to be a filmmaker, it's not always possible for many of us. Either we can't afford film school, or our life situation prevents us attending. I learned filmmaking by making a feature-length film with a camcorder. The film cost me $4,000 in cash to make and took me 3 years, so about as long as a standard filmmaking degree course, but at a greatly reduced cost. Plus, I had a completed feature film at the end as a nice bonus. There are advantages to paying for film school, such as growing your network. You get to pick the brains of a number of teachers, and you can also learn from other students. Essentially, you'll be amongst a like-minded crowd, moving forward together. After all, filmmaking almost always involves working with others. On the other hand, there are also advantages to teaching yourself. The most obvious advantage is it won't cost you anything, so your funds can be focused where it matters, making films. Another advantage is saving time. Whereas film schools tend to give you a wide range of knowledge, which you need to know to pass the course at the end, teaching yourself means you can focus on essential specifics. There are other benefits too. With film school, you'll need to dedicate a considerable amount of time per week, whereas you can fit your DIY lessons around other life activities. In addition, if you are intending to go to film school at some point, why not get started now? Having a good grounding in film knowledge certainly won't hurt your chances of getting into film school either.
The theatre screen gives pleasure and enlightenment to millions every day.
All filmmakers start out as film watchers. That's how we got inspired. We saw an amazing film as a child and something in our heads clicked. Movies are magic, and watching one that for some reason connects with us more than others can change our lives. In my case, I decided I wanted to be a film director. I wanted to somehow be involved in the magical process. Nothing would be more fulfilling, I thought, than creating a world and projecting it onto a big screen. I was 7 years old, but making the journey from film watcher to filmmaker took about another 35 years. That's because being a film watcher is very different to being a filmmaker. You have to think differently. To make the journey from film watcher to filmmaker, first you need to make an intermediary step, and that step is to become a film analyzer. Legendary auteur Orson Welles never went to film school either, but he still secured a 5-picture deal with a studio at the age of 25, without ever having directed a film before. Wells said that his preparation before making Citizen Kane was to watch John Ford's Stagecoach 40 times. After dinner every night for about a month, I'd run Stagecoach, often with some different technician or department head from the studio, and ask questions. How was this done? Why was this done? It was like going to film school. Bear in mind, Wells had been a star actor, theatre director, and radio drama director before, so he wasn't totally inexperienced. He knew how to tell a story. But you can see Orson Welles taught himself filmmaking by watching films. In fact, just one film 40 times. And that's a very good clue as to how a filmmaker is different to a film watcher. It's very unlikely you would watch any film 40 or more times as a film watcher. If you haven't made the step to film analyzer yet, you are most likely like other general movie consumers. You watch hoping to be entertained or to be moved. In this step, that is the first thing you need to change. When I worked in a cinema, part of my job was to sit in the auditorium with the audience for every showing of a movie. As I worked at a cinema with only one screen, this often meant seeing the same film over and over. When The Dark Knight exploded into cinemas around the world, my cinema, the BFI IMAX, decided to show the film 24 hours a day to meet audience demand. And after I'd seen the film 7 times, I decided I needed to do something to stop myself going crazy. So I started making notes as I watched the film for the 8th time. And then the 9th. After the 50th showing, I stopped counting. Watching one film over and over is like buying a car, taking it apart and putting it back together again to find out how it works. No one would do that unless they wanted to be a professional car mechanic or engineer, or maybe a amateur car mechanic or engineer. So if you seriously want to become a working filmmaker, this is your first test. Can you watch one film more than 20 times, analyzing it and taking it apart? Can you stomach that? If you can, that's a good sign you have what it takes to become a serious filmmaker. Now that you've watched your favorite film over 20 times, it doesn't have to be your favorite film, but perhaps one in the genre you aspire to making. But after you've watched it 20 times and taken it to pieces, your brain will have started to change. Henceforth, you will never be able to watch films again, as you did when you were just a happy, relaxed film watcher. Once you've made the step to film analyzer, you'll become obsessed with things in films none of your non-filmmaker friends will see. Once you start rambling on about the use of 2:1 aspect ratio in Stranger Things, only to see your friends have blank, uninterested looks, you know you're now watching a different film to them. But you're seeing films differently, and your brain is changing into a filmmaker's brain. And that's without shooting a single frame of film or video, or owning a single piece of filmmaking kit. Do not spend too long as a film analyzer. If you do, you will be in danger of becoming a film critic. That would be a terrible tragedy. Just kidding, film critics, you're doing a great job. So pick a film and watch it at least once a day for a week. Analyze it, make notes, get curious, choose the genre you're interested in. If you want to make horror films, for example, watch a horror film and pick one in a similar area that you're thinking of getting involved in. Become an expert in your genre, and it doesn't have to be movies. If you want to make travel videos, then watch your favorite travel video over and over and make notes. Dive into the detail of the piece and find out what makes it work the way it does. If you follow this simple task, by the end of the week your brain will be a little bit different to what it is today. For a start, films will look different. Not only that, but the real world will start to look like a series of shooting opportunities. You'll see two strangers talking in a cafe and wonder if they need a fill light, or if leaving them silhouetted against the window would look better. While your parents are telling you about their caravan holiday in Suffolk, you'll start dreaming of an epic opening drone shot to set the scene of the road movie version. Yes, you'll start thinking like a filmmaker. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, please think about liking and subscribing, and maybe even click that little bell thing. And I'll see you in the next video.